Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07. Thanks for letting us be a part of your early Monday morning in the nation's capital. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, Maryland Delegate Kathy Szeliga. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 8:05, Steve Moore with the Heritage Foundation. And at 8:35, Sean Kennedy. Why do I keep saying Kennedy? I don't know what's wrong with me. Sean Kennedy, president of Virginians for Safe Communities. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by my friend Andrew Langer. Good morning,
Andrew. Julie. Happy Cinco de Mayo to you.
That's right. Well, look, great news. Late last week, on Thursday, Trump signed an executive order terminating federal funding for National Public Radio and for PBS.
Yep.
Andrew, my goodness, we have been waiting. Andrew, I was an intern in Washington.
Yes.
I'm not going to say how many years ago, but it's been a long time. And we were talking about this.
Right. We've been talking about this for years.
Give me daylight savings time, and I can retire.
Yeah,
I will
it's
be a happy
all
person.
of. Well, isn't this is what has always set Donald Trump apart as a political leader and a political figure, is that he works diligently to deliver on these promises. Right.
Yes.
He says these things, and you and I are both jaded enough. We've spent enough time doing politics and policy in D.C. that, when a guy like Donald Trump runs for president in 2015, 2016, we're like, oh, pshaw. There's no way he's going to deliver on these things. And to me, on this story, my favorite part of this is the left can't have it both ways on
the
this.
left?
Well, the freak out, but it's also based on this fundamental inconsistency, right?
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, they're saying, oh, well, very little federal money actually goes to this. And yet then you turn around and you cut that little money, and it's not a little money. And
Right.
they're like, oh, my God, you're literally killing Big Bird, which, of course, you're not doing.
Well,
And I have those numbers here for you if you need them.
Oh, good. Well, we'll get to that. But let me read from this executive order because it's brilliant. He says government funding of this is Trump's executive order. He says government funding of news media in this environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, which we'll get to, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. The CPB board shall cease direct funding to NPR and PBS, consistent with my administration's policy of ensuring that federal funding does not support biased and partisan news coverage. He goes on to say the CPB board shall cancel existing direct funding to the maximum extent allowed by law and shall decline to provide for future funding. Of course, Andrew, this is an executive order. So that funding could start right back up unless Congress acts. But let's talk about that funding. You say you have the figures.
I have some numbers here, but let me just also say this part of it, which is for the folks freaking out. If it is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, then there is something inherently public that's involved in this. Therefore, yes, we can, if they are not serving the public's interest, by presenting only one viewpoint, then yes, we can cut federal funding for that. That's the way it works. So let me get to this, because again, they're talking about very little funding, right? Even here, I went to Perplexity. NPR receives a small amount of direct federal funding, and this is the stilted testimony of Catherine Marr. NPR receives about $11.2 million annually in direct federal funds. So you hear that, and they're like, oh, well, that's not a lot. But then you understand that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting gets $535 million annually from Congress, of which $120 million goes to NPR and public radio stations, and another 200 or so million, 200 plus million, goes to PBS, 268 million, and an additional 100 million was distributed as television programming grants, none of which has ever gone to anything that smacks of conservative or libertarian politics.
Of course. And I want to talk a little bit about the sort of media freak out over this, because it's delicious.
Yes.
But it also just, you've highlighted this really well, talking about how they both freak out about how PBS needs this money, but then they also in the next breath will say, but it gets no money. So it's like, which one is it?
Yes.
But let's listen now. I love any moment that we can make fun of Jake Tapper. And this is classic Tapper talking about he would not be where he is today if it weren't for PBS. Let's listen to Cut 7.
Via a rescission bill, going to pull those funds back.
Okay, but
Sesame Street. I mean, Daniel the Tiger, Wild Kratts. I mean, you have little kids, I know, and I'm sure you and your wife can bring them great educational programming. But a lot of kids might not have access to cable, and I didn't when I was little because cable didn't exist. But I mean, PBS really helps little kids. I mean, I'm talking specifically about.
No, it doesn't.
Kids learning how to read through Sesame Street and similar programming.
Hold on for a second.
Spun off Sesame Street.
Oh, thank you, Michael. I mean, here's the thing, right? At the end of the day, we're spending huge amounts of money in America today to give everybody internet access, right? Free internet access for everybody, no matter where you are.
I mean,
and so, if parents are trying to use videos to educate their kids, by and large, they're probably doing it on YouTube or something like that. Sorry, go ahead.
Right.
Julie.
No, exactly. Yeah. But I just really quickly want to follow up with Cut 8 because he goes on.
It's interesting. I just have to say, on a personal level, I learned to read by watching Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and The Electric Company. That's literally how I learned to read as a kid.
Jake, you're 1,000 years old, okay? I'm sorry. Oh, but Jake is probably our age, so I probably shouldn't say that. First of all, that's not true. Secondly, that was probably in the late 60s or early 70s when there were 3 channels, Jake, and then the fourth was PBS, okay?
And let me just say, listen, I am someone who used to play these old Sesame Street videos for my kids on YouTube. There's something very different about them then. Now, there was an agenda then, too, but the bottom line here is things have changed. There are contents that are out there that you can get.
Things have changed. And what I do love is this is Tapper talking on a cable show about the need, which is privately owned, privately funded. She's on a cable show talking about the need for PBS. I love this, too, Jonathan Capehart, talking about how this is actually an attack on the Constitution. Cut 9.
Jonathan, what do you make of the president's moves at this time? Not just about PBS. This is not just about us. It's part of a larger campaign here.
Right. But I think what the president is doing, it is a fundamental attack on our Constitution, on the foundation of this country. People need to understand and remember there is only one profession that is protected in the Constitution, and it is the free press.
Oh, my God.
Right,
it is the press.
Julie.
And why?
Hold on.
Because the founders...
Julie, let me, I'm sending a message. Jonathan Capehart, who I know is listening right now. Jonathan, let me give you a little hint here. If it's government-funded media, it's not free press.
That's right.
It's government-funded media.
And, of course, David Brooks, sitting right next to Capehart, the supposed, Republican or conservative on that PBS panel. Because, of course, this is nodding along, Mr. Smart Guy, David Brooks, nodding along to this absolute ludicrous point that Capehart is making. Eli Steele, if you don't know who Eli Steele is, great on X. He's Shelby Steele's son. He put a tweet up talking about how that PBS has basically cut out conservative filmmakers long ago. He said, my father won PBS an Emmy for 7 Days in Bensonhurst and made another great one, Jefferson's Blood. PBS's response, no more money for you, because, again, it had a conservative or sort of probably a pro-American perspective. Heather Hunter, our executive producer, has an interesting perspective here. She tweeted, having worked for the radio biz for decades, I remember when I went to college as a radio TV major, she wanted to work at the college radio station, but she was told that students didn't really have access to it because it was run by NPR. So we, the students, had to create our own online radio station just to have a chance at getting experience in broadcasting. NPR has taken over college radio stations for decades, pretending to be working with colleges and communities. It's about time they have to compete with commercial radios like the one you're listening to right now. So we will continue to follow this. It really is an interesting story. And the media freakout, the left-wing media freakout, is delicious. We'll continue in just a moment. But first, it is 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Are you a fan?
I'm sorry. I just love Michael's musical picks are just so fantastic.
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
Michael, are you a Girl Scout cookie fan?
Yes, I am. Listen, I love my Samoas. I love my Thin Mints, and it's been forever since I've had them. So yeah,
yeah. You're just okay, fine. Because it's been a while. Yeah, I don't think they're that good. And apparently, a lot of Americans agree with me. In New York City, Girl Scout cookies sales apparently have crumbled.
Yes, I love that headline.
To a decade. Yes, very funny.
Yeah.
Crumble cookies, by the way.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Oh, yes.
To a decade low, thanks to now this is according to the New York Post. They're saying it's economic uncertainty. I don't think it's economic.
No, I'm being tongue in cheek.
Okay,
I know where you're going with this, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I think it's two things. First of all, have you paid attention to the Girl Scouts lately? First of all, they've gone completely woke, and a bunch of these Girl Scouts, they partner with, there's stuff from Planned Parenthood. There's like merit badges that are woke now. Plus, the Girl Scouts have now invaded the Boy Scouts, who no longer go by the. I mean, you want to know why boys are, voting for, are turning right? It's because for years boys have been accused of being, the problem. Everything's going wrong in the world is because of boys. Toxic masculinity. All of these programs, science programs, math programs that are geared towards girls. Boys never get a chance. And then you've got girls invading the Boy Scouts to the point that the Boy Scouts changes their name to Scouts.
It's
outrageous.
That bothers me. But let me sort of hold on.
Okay, wait. I'm not doing my point. First is that people don't want to support the Girl Scouts anymore because, again, they're woke and awful. Secondly, I think this is a little bit of the Maha effect. I think this is a little bit of the country as a whole trying to get healthy. And I don't really think Girl Scout cookies are considered that healthy.
No, well, that's very true. But let me also add another element to this. About 5, 6, maybe a couple more years ago, the major cookie companies, Keebler, I think it was.
Sure.
Keebler started doing their own versions of some of these Girl Scout cookies. They made their own version of the Samoas. They made their own version of the Thin Mints. So you don't have to wait. You didn't have to wait and keep, boxes of your Girl Scout cookies in your freezer for months.
Right.
Not that you really needed to do that because of the various preservatives in there. By the way, it also, I don't know if they changed the formulary. I think that they may have. I don't know. There was a TV show called Billions in which the main character, Bobby Axelrod, takes this snack cake company to task because they changed their recipe to make them more shelf stable, and it undercuts the snack cakes. So I think the demand is down because you don't need to buy special Girl Scout cookies anymore. You can just go to your.
These are these sort of dinosaurs of things that just, there's so much competition out there right now. But again, I want to just read this statement from the Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts is proud to be the premier leadership organization for girls in the country. Placement of transgender youth is handled on a case-by-case basis with the welfare and best interests of the child and members of the troop group in question as top priority. That said, if the child is recognized by the family and school community as a girl and lives culturally as a girl, then Girl Scouts is an organization that can serve her in a setting that is both emotionally and physically safe. So let me get this right. My little girl goes on a camping trip, not accompanied by her parents, but by some scout leader, and there's a boy in a tent with her. Like, what is? So again, this is another case of a captured institution that is pushing the transgender, the DEI, and other woke things. People don't want to support this. And the way the average person, maybe without kids, maybe, is really sort of past this stage of their life, they're, because they all set up these tables outside the grocery stores. I'm not going to support an organization that supports the mutilation of children.
Right.
That's just the way it is. Can you get back to making flowers and macrame, pot holders, and going on walks? This kind of crap, people are tired of it.
And it gets into why buy it from the table where there's all this stuff that you don't agree with you, and you can literally just walk into the grocery store and get your Keebler version of the Samoa or the Thin Mint or Dosey-Dos or whatever. Yes, I know all the names. I know all the names, Julie. Yes.
What's the one that's like a shortbread?
That's the Dosey-Dos.
That's my favorite.
Yes.
Well, when I did eat them, because you know what, you can spread peanut butter on them.
But you can get pecan sandies, but they also have, the peanut butter patties. I mean, all of those.
I feel like no. I feel like we're advertising for them. We need to stop it. Also, I'm getting hungry.
Go and get your Keebler cookies.
Yeah. Also, I'm getting hungry. Okay, we've got more to get to. Right now, it's 6:23. Coming up, we'll talk to Maryland delegate Kathy Szeliga. Keep it here. It's 6:30.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37. Thanks for letting us be a part of your early Monday morning in the nation's capital. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. Got a lot to talk about with Joe. 8:05, Stephen Moore with the Heritage Foundation. And at 8:35, Sean Kennedy, president of Virginians for Safe Communities. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by Andrew Langer. Good
Happy
morning, Andrew.
Cinco de Mayo,
That's
Julie.
right. Nice
little
music.
Johnny Cash on
That's
on this. I'm sorry. Yes.
Joining us now, Maryland delegate Kathy Szeliga. Thanks for joining us, Kathy.
Hey, great to be on with you guys, Julie and Andrew.
Well, Kathy, you've got quite a disturbing report here on Maryland schools and how they're pushing gender ideology. We know this. You've written about this on X, how they are pushing this gender ideology from pre-K to grade 12, often without the consent of parents. And look, Maryland schools have been in the news lately because of the Supreme Court hearing that case in Montgomery County of how Montgomery County has gone so far as to not allow parents to opt their kids out. Talk about what you've found on this issue in Maryland schools. We're talking, I think you're focusing on a lot of Baltimore schools.
Right. There's this new program, Julie, that pushes gender ideology in rural schools.
Right.
So, we know what's going on in Montgomery County, Maryland, although you can be assured it's going on everywhere. But this ridiculous program is getting $1.4 million every year, and the grant funding's supposed to go through 2028. But I'm hopeful that President Trump and Congressman Andy Harris will cut that funding and they'll stop doing it. But they're going to start teaching children using a fantasy unicorn that not all girls have vaginas and not all boys have penises.
Oh, gosh.
So, what's so funny about it is they picked a unicorn that's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
To teach children things that aren't real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, it's fun. And I'm glad that you mentioned this because I misspoke saying you were focusing on Baltimore schools, but no, this is rural schools.
Right.
And one thing that's interesting about Maryland is a lot of more rural Maryland areas are quite conservative. Is that kind of the point here, Kathy?
It seems like it. I mean, the silver lining here is that I know many classroom teachers, as do you, as do your listeners, who won't teach this stuff. They'll call me and say, Kathy, you will not believe what showed up in the curriculum. They won't teach it. They feel uncomfortable talking about it, and they're certainly not going to invite parents of children into their classroom to say, what the heck are you teaching Johnny that he can be Jane? Mm-hmm. We're not having any of this. But yeah, they want the teachers, to, rather than talking about boys and girls, we will stick with people with
gender neutral language. People with vaginas and people with uteruses instead of girls and boys.
Kathy,
let's just make everyone uncomfortable.
Right.
Kathy, I lived in one of those rural Maryland counties for many, many years, and one of those things that gets me about this is we know that these rural counties, they can have better performing students than these other leftist-leaning counties that are, indoctrinating our kids with this kind of an agenda. There's a certain degree of dumbing down of these students, the forced dumbing down by implementing this agenda. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure, and the highest performing school system in Maryland has 23 counties in Baltimore City, so we have 24 independent school districts. The highest performing district is Carroll County, which is a rural county.
Right.
And they refuse to teach this gender ideology. So for the last 3 years, we've had a battle on the House floor every year as the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee from Howard County, Vanessa Atterbury, forces through the House a bill to make them teach gender ideology. Carroll County said, we're going to let parents opt out. You can choose something else or the state curriculum. We're still going to teach the state curriculum because we don't want to lose our funding. But they're punishing the best performing schools. But this curriculum is so ridiculous. True You. How ridiculous is that? True
so
You.
awful. With
a unicorn, they're going to teach fantasy things to children. And one of the other things they have in this True You is they want to teach kids about fat pride.
Oh, God.
There you go.
I mean, you were just talking about Girl Scout cookies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, we all want to eat a whole sleeve of Thin Mints. But we don't because we know, that's not good for us, right? But, body positive beginnings in the tween and teen years taught through the importance of, quote, fat pride.
Unbelievable. That is, and honestly, that is the sort of fat acceptance movement is one of the most dangerous and unhealthy trends out there. It is a terrible trend that young girls are very susceptible to. I think that there's a lot of pressure on young girls, and instead of giving them advice on how to be healthy, telling them to be your true self, be overweight, it's terrible. Kathy, I want to also pivot over to something that you tweeted about pornographic books in the high schools there in Frederick County. This is something that we've seen in Virginia. How can parents battle this?
This is critical, and I actually very uncomfortably had to stand on that floor of the Maryland House of Delegates and read parts of Genderqueer because they voted to put those books in our schools. So the Speaker of the House had the bill to ensure those books are in schools and public libraries. So parents of kids in Maryland, these books are in your school.
Well, thank you for raising awareness.
Yes, it was incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course.
So to describe cartoon pictures of just things I won't even talk about because they're very uncomfortable, and you can look it up online. But in Frederick County, a very, very brave woman who was a substitute teacher stood and read one of these disgusting books that's in the public schools that talks about a father raping his daughter.
Oh, my gosh. A
father raping his daughter. Ugh. What value?
What is that doing in there? What is in the world?
Zero.
Right.
And it was graphic.
Listen,
graphic descriptions.
Listen, Kathy, we're up against a break here, but I want to ask you just super quick, 10 seconds. Governor Westmore went on The View, his first mistake, and said that he denied running for president. Do you believe him?
He'll deny it until he says he just has to do it.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Kathy, we love having you on. Thank you so much. And please come back and keep us updated on that situation.
I will do that. Thanks, Julie and Andrew.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Kathy. We've got more coming up. It is 6:43. Oh, no, it is 6:45. What am I thinking?
WMAL, making sense of the border, because laws either matter or they don't. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Well, Andrew, you know what this means. It was Derby weekend. Did you watch? Did you go? You were in New York, so you didn't go to a Derby party.
No, we didn't go to a Derby party, and we were at dinner when it all happened. No, I watched some of the pre-coverage, and I'm not sure that the Kentucky Derby merits many hours of coverage of people's hats. But maybe that's just me. I mean, I get it. It's a big opportunity for, I guess it was NBC to showcase their Olympics coverage coming up. But,
sure, and it's a big opportunity. Look, ladies love to get those fascinators and hats out once a year, right? It's Here's
fun. The thing. If you're going to wear a hat that's tilted to one side and you're on camera, make sure that it's not the side that's facing the camera where the hat's tilted down so we can't see your face. That was a big
Thank you for the fashion advice, Andrew.
Let me tell you, I'm always here to help at 6:50 on a Monday morning.
Well, it was, I got to say, I love how this worked out because it's sort of symbolic win a horse named Sovereignty won over a horse named Journalism.
Yes.
How great is that? Let's play cut 14.
Journalism is on the move as they turn for home, and Sovereignty is coming with him on the outside. The two of them go right by with a furlong to run. Journalism and Sovereignty, nose to nose, down to the last 16th of a mile. Sovereignty has taken the lead. Journalism is second toward the inside. Baez is third, but it will be Sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby. Journalism and Baez over next.
I'm waiting for the Gabriella Hoffmans of the world to create the video that shows Sovereignty beating Journalism, as some greater meta thing. By the way, kudos to both Riley Gaines and to Kathy Szeliga for tweeting out that little nugget over the weekend.
Yeah, they said Riley Gaines wrote, "Sovereignty beats Journalism, symbolic, a nation reclaiming its voice over the narratives written about it." And Kathy Szeliga writing, "Is there providence in this horse race, i.e.
Yes.
names of horses?"
No, listen, what I get, and I don't think we have a lot of time to talk about it now, but what bothers me is, of course, you have then the Washington Post trying to take the story of the Argentine jockey, and most of these jockeys are born in South America, as I understand it, to make some greater commentary about immigration and immigration policy.
Oh, that's right. Andrew, thank you so much for reminding me of that. Yes, and what Andrew's touching on is that they were saying that this guy's an immigrant, so because of Trump's policies, he wouldn't even be here able to win victory, right, for Sovereignty. And it's like, he's a legal immigrant.
Right, and let's also point out, once again, Providence, Sovereignty beats Journalism in this case as well.
Well, yes, and I want to say, I just want to play cut 15, because this is what the jockey who we were just referring to, this is what he said when a reporter approached him about his win. Cut 15.
You finally get your first Kentucky Derby win. What's this mean?
First of all, thank you. I gotta thank my Lord Jesus for giving me this Kentucky Derby win.
Aww.
It was him and Sovereignty who got me all the way to the wire.
That's lovely. It is.
Right.
It is 6:53. Coming up, Joe DeGeneva. Keep it here. It's 7 o'clock.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.